spreader event. We have multiple people that are.
Okay, good evening everyone. So this is a live on YouTube here from our Destination Fluency channel. And my objective tonight is to do a kind of a trial run with our streaming capabilities here from this channel. Because on Thursday, we're going to be doing a webinar and I want to make sure that everything is working. But what I'm particularly interested today is on how YouTube is going to manage or how YouTube is going to interfere when I start using as source material for my class, for the examples that I'm going to explore, news from YouTube, from different news channels, right? For instance, I might use CNN, NBC. I might use their news program called Nightly News and things like that. And so my objective is really to see how Google is going to deal with that, because when I use YouTube videos of series, for example, what happens is that YouTube allows me to stream. Let's put it that way. So I'm streaming. I'm streaming my content to you. But as an example, I'm going to play a video here, and I'm going to share my screen with you. So basically, I'm streaming material that is not mine, and I know that. But it's not like I'm stealing anything, because this is something which is already on YouTube. I'm just using it to make a point, to set an example. I mean, to use as an example. And for example, tonight, what I decided to do was this. So I've got this mind map here that I created for the content material that I want to work on. So for instance, I had this idea the other day for a video, which today I'm not actually recording that video. I'm just doing a kind of a trial run. But basically, what I would like to do is this. I'm making a video in which I'm going to make a list, and I'm going to start with 20 words, but I might go further than that. You know, I might come to a conclusion that I will need more words, because you see, 2020 was a very it was a unique year for us, you know. And one of the words that was used extensively in 2020 was this one here: unprecedented. Unprecedented, I think. Unprecedented. Yeah. So, in other words, because lots of things that we saw in 2020 had never happened before, and this has got to do with the pandemic. It's got to do with Donald Trump in his last year as a president, because lots of the things that Donald Trump did had never been done before by a president. For example, when he lost the election on November, I think it was on November 26th, when they already had the results, he refused to do what? He refused to concede. So, as you can see here, that's what I'm doing. I'm making a mind map in which I write all the 20 words. Okay? So, for example, the verb to concede. Okay, but there's a typing mistake here. Let me type it again. The verb to concede. To concede. Okay, and what does that mean? And what I would like to do, what I intend to do, okay, is to use YouTube videos, for example. Here I had already typed something because I was looking for I'm sorry. I've got a bit of stomach gases, and I suffered a little bit from reflux, so I apologize when that happened. Okay, but anyway, so Trump refuses to concede. Oh my God, and I did it again. Trump's refused to concede. Okay. So Trump refuses to concede the election. So Donald Trump won't concede. So what I had in mind was something like this. I would pick up a video like that.
Joe Biden was declared the winner of the 2020 presidential election. But even though many people are cheering, for some Americans, it's still going to take a little longer for this result to sink in.
That of President Trump remaining defiant and not conceding this race.
Across the country, pro-Trump protesters echoing the president's baseless claims that the election was stolen.
He would have to do a lot to convince Republicans that this is anything except a left-wing power grab financed by people like George Soros.
We had computer glitches that changed Republican votes to Democrat votes. You look in Pennsylvania.
Not conceding this race.
Across the country,
That of President Trump remaining defiant and not conceding.
Okay, and so that's what I intend to do. I intend to stop the video at certain points and show you guys, Americans, using this vocabulary. So this word, for example, this verb was used extensively right after the elections. Why? Because at some point, Joe Biden was declared the new president. And from that point on, people started referring to him to President-elect Biden, which means that according to the polls, he was the new president. But the country would have to wait until January 20 when he would take over, from Donald Trump. But until that moment. So, and then what's the tradition? Well, the tradition is for the outgoing president to officially admit to the public that there is a new president and that he has lost. In other words, the verb to concede here means to admit, means to accept the defeat in the ballots, in the elections. And Trump, being Trump, he refused to do that. So anyway, so when I was preparing my mind map with the words that were extensively used in the year of 2020, towards the end of the year, this is one. In the very beginning of the year, we had words like overwhelmed, hospitalized, and surge. And so this is what I want to do. I want to find videos in which Native Americans, especially on the news, they're using these words that I want to explore with you. And this is one. Okay? So just to consolidate that message then. Donald Trump refused to concede the elections. In other words, to admit that he had lost. Let's watch a little bit more. Okay, because since this is a test, now I'm going to be playing more than just 1 minute. Okay, I'm going to play about 2 minutes, close to 3 minutes, because that way I can do the test on YouTube that I want to do.
This race. Across the country, pro-Trump protesters echoing the president's baseless claims that the election was stolen.
He would have to do a lot to convince Republicans that this is anything except a left-wing power grab financed by people like George Soros.
We had computer glitches that changed Republican votes to Democrat votes. You look in Pennsylvania, dead people voted in Pennsylvania.
There's a software called Hammer and Scorecard used to flip votes from Trump to Biden. Is that indeed true?
We've had hundreds of thousands of ballots mysteriously appear solely for Mr. Biden. This is coup 5.0, Lou.
Ooh, coup 5.0? Is that the coup with the front-facing camera? Oh, that's dope. I want to get one of those. Are these guys kidding us? This was so batshit. I caught coronavirus just listening to it. You're telling me that the crafty Democrats have used their satanic powers to steal the election, but for some reason they didn't steal the Senate? Because what? They were using the free version of satanic powers and taking the Senate as a premium feature? Like, when you think about this, America's whole system is rigged to help Donald Trump. The man lost by 4 million popular votes and still had a chance to win the Electoral College. How does that make sense? The only person Donald Trump should be mad at is himself, because he started on third base and still somehow lost the game. And look, I think everyone agrees that if there really is voter fraud, we wouldn't want that to decide the election. But guys, Donald Trump always says that there's voter fraud. In 2016, he said it about every single primary that he lost, right? And then he even said it was the reason that he lost the popular vote. It's never been true. And this is not just me saying it. The courts have also been like, yeah, Donald, we're not buying it, buddy.
The president's personal attorneys have vowed to continue filing lawsuits, even though they don't appear to have any clear path to 270 electoral votes. And they've already faced a string of court losses so far, as judges keep saying that these allegations are just not supported by evidence.
If you get to the court of law, you got to provide evidence. And the case that they brought in Michigan was summarily rejected by the judge who said you don't have any evidence. It was based on a posted note. I'm not kidding. On a posted note with an unsigned note saying they're telling me to change the addresses.
Yeah, that's the difference between Fox News and courts. In courts, they ask follow-up questions. Because you can go on Fox News all day screaming, Joe Biden stole the election! But in court, they ask, how? I got a post-it note? Honestly, I wonder, does Trump have even one lawyer who knows the law? Because it feels like all the people he knows, he only knows them because they specialize in the criminal code that they've been charged with. I need someone who knows fraud. Jimmy, you did time for that thing, right? You're on the case, buddy. Just do what they did to you. Because seriously, a post-it note? Even if you want to get on Judge Judy for a property damage case, you gotta have some photos of a dented hood, something. They're not letting you on TV if you just show up with a post-it note that says, my Honda got all effed up. I mean, come on, guys. If all you got is bullshit evidence, at least make it exciting. Bullshit evidence. Don't come at me with a, I got a post-it note. Be like, well, if Joe Biden isn't stealing the election, then why do I have this used condom in my pocket? I rest my case. Nobody should be surprised that these guys are losing these cases with this kind of evidence. Because let me tell you something now. If you were in an episode of Law & Order with a post-it note, that would be the shortest episode ever.
As submitted to evidence, this posted.
The case is dismissed.
So with the court skeptical, the campaign had to take their argument directly to the people. And honestly, it might have gone better if they'd chosen a slightly different venue.
The Trump campaign held a press conference to challenge the election results at Four Seasons Total Landscaping in Northeast Philadelphia. Some people suspect the campaign intended to reserve the Four Seasons Hotel, but accidentally booked this landscaping company, located between a crematorium and a sex toy store. Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, was speaking when he was told the election had been called for Biden.
Who was it called by? Oh my goodness, all the networks. Wow! All the networks!
No, guys, come on. How is this real? Like, how is this real? How are you going to hold a press conference at a landscaping warehouse between a crematorium and a sex toy store? I mean, as a general rule, if you're ever out declaring war, you don't want to do it 20 feet from a dildo. Although, I mean, in some ways it makes sense. Because if you ask people what's halfway between a pawn shop and a crematorium, they'd probably say Rudy Giuliani. And by the way, I have a feeling that Rudy Giuliani uses that sarcastic response a lot. I'm sorry, who wants me to put my clothes back on? Everyone. Oh, wow, everyone. Every single person in this Denny's wants me to put my clothes back on. Now, the campaign says that they did mean to have the press conference at this venue. And I hope that that's true. But it really just sounds like Trump's legal team accidentally booked the wrong Four Seasons. And if that is the case, that would be so sad. I mean, do you know how incompetent you gotta be to get catfished by a landscaping business? Also, I love how the real Four Seasons tweeted that it has nothing to do with them, because even hotel chains are trying to get away from Trump now. I bet Motel 6 was like, get out of here, you scumbags, you're grossing out our bed bugs. I also feel really bad for anyone who was inside that sex shop during that press conference. Because imagine being in a sex shop and then seeing every camera in America pulling up next door Now you gotta hide out in a dildo store for 6 hours. And that's a long time to pretend to be browsing.
Yeah, so is this the edible underwear? Is it gluten-free? Yeah, they're still outside? Okay. Do you do samples?
So even though most of the world has accepted that Joe Biden will be the next president, Donald Trump is clearly planning to drag out this fight for weeks. And his people are behind him all the way. Well, almost all the way.
Despite no proof to support allegations of widespread fraud or illegal voting in the United States, some of his top Republican allies backing the president's refusal to concede.
At this point, we do not know who has prevailed in the election. The media is desperately trying to get everyone to coronate Joe Biden as the next president, but that's not how it works.
Trump has not lost. Do not concede, Mr. President. Fight hard.
President Trump is 100% within his rights to look into allegations of irregularities and weigh his legal options.
Privately, people believe that it is time for the president to concede the election. It is true that Jared Kushner has approached the president about conceding the election, and then my colleague reported that the First Lady has also talked to the president about accepting the fact that he has lost this election to Joe Biden. Basically, they're all just waiting on the president to come to terms with what's happening.
Yes. Melania and Jared are reportedly trying to convince Donald Trump to concede. Although Melania is definitely working her own hustle at the same time. Donald, you have to concede. Pennsylvania says Biden won, and they also said our marriage isn't valid. I know, it's their decision, the people have spoken. And as for Jared schooling Trump, imagine being told to grow up by a guy who's never gone through puberty. That's gotta hurt. It's also not great for Jared either, because this is just yet another impossible job Trump has given him to do.
All right, Jared. It's your job to convince me to concede the election.
Okay, sir, it's time to concede.
Eat shit, you creepy mannequin. Catch me if you can. Ah!
So, maybe Trump will decide to concede eventually. Or hey, maybe he won't. It actually doesn't really matter either way because it's not really his decision to make. Joe Biden is going to become president on January 20th, and Trump's opinion about that counts for exactly 1 vote. Same as any other vote in America. And I know it's hard to believe, but after all this time, it looks like reality has finally caught up with Donald Trump.
Okay, so if there's anybody watching this, my apologies, because this was just a quick trial run. I was just running a test here to see whether or not YouTube would drop my streaming just because I was restreaming, in this case, news from news channels like the NBC and things like that. Because this is exactly what I intend to do during my webinar, because in the webinar I'm going to be using all kinds of different tools to explain vocabulary and so on. And so basically that's it. I think at this point the wise thing for me to do is to stop the streaming. Let me just check one more thing here. Let me see. Okay, right. And back to this live. Here we go. And basically that's it. I think I can stop now.